So in our last movie, we looked at bones and how they're deployed into a character in a very basic kind of top level sense. This time we're going to go over some specific requirements your geometry needs to have to make bones work efficiently and effectively. I have a basic layer right here, and if I want bones to influence this shape, what I need to do is come back to my layers palette, create a new bone layer, and I'll call this basic bone, and take my basic rectangle layer, for which I already have something drawn, and drag it into that folder so that it becomes influenced by the bone. The next thing to do is to select the basic bone layer, come back over to my bone add tool, which was something that appeared as soon as I selected the drawing layer for the bones. And we'll start with a hip bone on the left side, and I'm going to click and drag. I'll release, click and drag, and then one more time, click and drag. If I come to the manipulate bone tool, we see now that when I select that, we get these little kind of color fields that go around the bones. These are the areas of influence for the bone that's selected. So the one that's highlighted right now turns red, and its little field turns red as well. So when I bend this or move this with the manipulation tool, if I pull down, we should expect this rectangle to go ahead and turn. But look, it doesn't. And that is one of the things that you need to be aware of with geometry, with your drawings, and how it works with bones. In order for the geometry to flex, come back to our basic rectangle here, the object needs to have enough points in it to actually change shape. So right now we only have 4. We can see that highlighted 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason the object is shearing instead of bending is because there's only those 4 points. Now you'll notice that I have the bone tool selected right now, even though I'm on the drawing layer. That's because this drawing layer is now a subset of a bone layer, and we see that show up over here in our tool. So you can make changes like that, always on keyframe 0. Well, let's see how we would make this a little bit better. The easiest way for me to do that is to go ahead, and I'm going to hide these and just create a new bone layer. We'll call it bone 2. And since I had the basic rectangle layer section selected, it immediately deployed the bone layer inside of that. And that's something we'll look at coming up in a movie, that you can nest these bone layers together. And there's a very good reason to do that. So I'll drag the bone layer to the top. I'll take my detailed rectangle layer and drag that into the bone layer and make sure these are both visible. With the bone layer selected right there, I'm going to grab my add bone tool, click and drag, and we'll again do the 3 bones. The bone manipulation tool, as you would expect, well, maybe you wouldn't expect it. It's in the left hand for your keyboard is Z. So I'll select that, but watch what happens now when I go ahead and start moving this. We get a nice bend going on. And the reason for that is that when we select the detailed rectangle, and I come back to, say, my shape select tool, we can see that this has many more points. Now, you don't necessarily need this many points to get a good bend. If I go ahead and select points here and delete them one at a time, so we wind up, instead of having all these extras, we just have a point in the middle. I'll highlight that now just by clicking on the center of it. So now we've got our endpoints, one in the center. With the level selected, if I choose the bone manipulate tool and grab this again, we can see that we still get some flexing going on, but we can also see that the edges right here constrain and pull in just a little bit. That is something we can fix with a very cool new tool that happens to be in Anime Studio Pro, and we'll look at that as we get into a little more complex boning in some upcoming movies. But be aware that the more points you add to a shape, the more anime has to think about it at render time. So it's always a balance between as few points as possible to keep your rendering light or the calculations light, but get satisfactory results when you work with flexing.